Alright everybody, thank you for tuning in to Blades in the Dark. This is Drop Dice, and we are starting our campaign now. Game here, before we get too deep, is written by John Harper from Evil Hat Production now. He's also Cubicle 7 Design. He's been working on this project for quite some time. This is a book that I know myself and Lewis backed way in the beginning. And so we've been dying to see this thing come through all the way and make it out as a final product. So we are very excited to be able to preview the game and its pre-release, because it's still going through the printer. And once I get the hardback, for anybody who's interested in seeing more about the game, I've been doing some breakdown of classes and crews. I will also do a flip through of the book once it arrives. So I'm very excited to see that. Oh, looks like my call dropped. Hold on a second. Are you guys still there? Oh no, technical issues. It wouldn't be using Skype without it. Let's try this again.
You guys have chat open.
If you go up to the top right corner, there's a little speech bubble looking thing.
So
you hit that in the chat.
On that note, I have 2 monitors, which helps me out quite a bit on streaming. If you guys use the chat inside Skype, I will not see it because that's going to be one of the screens that I'm burying behind other more useful screens to me. If you use the Roll20 chat, which I'm going to send you guys a link to here in a second, that will be the most useful chat for me to be contacted directly. For those of you that are not familiar with Roll20, you can do what's called a whisper. Basically, it's /W, and then you can put in a name of a player, a character's name, or just put /WGM, and that'll whisper me directly. Yeah, actually Skype's going to be my best option here for getting you guys a link to it. So let me drop that inside the Skype chat, and then I'm going to close that out.
Oh, damn it, I gotta sign.
Now, the one thing that I will say is once you're in Roll20, if you go to the cog, there is a option to disable your broadcast and receive features. I would go ahead and, or else you're going to hear an echo. The other thing that I would do is just below that, they talk about chat avatars. I usually change that to nameplates only just because it makes the screen a little bit easier to see. A lot of what we're going to be doing is looking at the maps at certain points. So the maps are actually important for Roll20, and then we're going to do our rolls in Roll20. The cool thing is our viewers are actually going to be able to see our rolls kind of down the middle where we currently have the Blades of the Dark logo. I'm going to superimpose our chat roll log. So just to give you guys a quick preview of that,
right.
It's going to look like this, which is kind of where our chat log is right now since we haven't rolled anything.
I'm sorry, how do I join the Roll20 game?
If you click on that link, it should bring you in.
Just turn off this halo in the background.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, if you click on the link, it'll let you sign in, and then you should be able to join from there.
Got it.
And unfortunately, I'm a little behind, so I'm going to be eating while we're doing this for the first portion.
Yeah, I might have to grab some grub myself a little later, but
I'm following the great Matt Click example, and I have a hot and ready tonight.
There you go.
All right, perfect. Now, let me switch my screens real quick here. Alright, so now that you guys are in, you're going to notice that there are some things that I've already populated for you. There is a cruise. You probably won't see anything in there because I think everything's been disabled for you. The characters is also blank, but there's quite a handouts that are available to you guys right now. I've done some, so if you want to find out information about factions, what you can do is click on that faction link there, and it will actually take you over to, let me put that up here. it will actually take you into kind of this double axe looking picture, and then below it sees to the directions and stuff throughout the game. So if you had a question about, for example, the Gray Cloaks, you could find them on the list, click on it, and it will give you the information about them. There are some shoot, I am dropping frames. So we're going to continue. Like I said to these guys beforehand, this is recording locally, so I will be putting a video on demand about it. For anybody who's catching the stream, I apologize, but I don't really want to stop our recording to fix some frame issues. We're going to correct it for the next episode. For anybody who does catch this, it's in the stream. It should correct itself and come back in for you. I'm not sure exactly why it did that to me. Okay. We also have some maps of Duskfall, character creation, crew creation, quick reference charts, the prison claims chart, because that's the only thing I don't have for your characters built in, and then some rule references for us so that we can kind of pull those up as we need to. Let's switch this over here. All right. No, it is currently down right now, Nelson. That's part of dropping frames issue. My bit rate is a little too high right now, so it's not streaming correctly. I'll have to correct it for the next episode, just because I don't want to stop us from playing for me to take 10-15 minutes to correct that, because it does take a bit of time.
All right.
No, there's a little green square, what I think is crow's foot. If I remember correctly, is it supposed to be there?
That was from one of my example videos. I just went ahead and took
Got
that
it.
off there. So let's go ahead and get some character sheets here. Inside the characters, you're going to see a couple of names pop up here. Which, let me set them to where... I'm going to set it to where all of you can edit each sheet. Be kind. Don't do it with a prankster. That mainly so if, like, let's say Lewis couldn't make a game for whatever reason and you wanted to put down a note that was important to his character, you could do that there. It also allows you to basically control his character if necessary. Again, only in circumstances where I pretty much say that that's okay for now. And while I'm setting this up, let's talk to each one of you and kind of talk about what you guys do. Jeff, if you want to talk about your channel, what you do, and kind of who you are inside the group here.
I'm Jeff. I have a YouTube channel called Encounter Balance. There's just a couple videos there right now, just kind of getting this started up. Going to be mostly just some tabletop gaming stuff, running games online, which I do a decent amount, and just some other general videos on tabletop stuff.
Perfect. And Nelson, you want to go next?
I'm muted. As you know, Chris said, I'm Nelson. Some people know me as a tourist power gamer. I have the Facebook and YouTube Infinite Roleplay and Twitter Infinite Roleplay. On my YouTube, I run games. I do time work, cartography, tutorials, general game chats. And I also have a drive-through RPG store where I've developed a tabletop RPG Saturday morning tabletop, as well as having resources for things such as Stars Without Numbers, dungeons, and a whole slew of RPG goodies.
Okay, perfect. And Lewis?
Hi, I'm rather unremarkable. These guys. Currently don't have anything on YouTube or the like. We'll see if that changes in the coming months.
All right, not a problem. So, for you guys, I have your characters done, and bounce the crew to you guys as well. The crew, all of you can edit, and I do encourage you guys to get your fingers in there, each one of you. However, don't edit at the same time, because you're going to see a lot of problems if you do that. Just kind of, if you're editing it, make sure that other people realize that you are. After creation, you guys probably won't edit it until we get an advancement and the crew gets an upgrade. Kind of like normal RPGs, your characters are going to advance, but also your crew is going to advance. A lot of this game is not only about who your character is, but establishing a legacy through your crew and being able to control the city in whatever way it's your particular crew style. So let's go ahead and talk real quick about setting. Basically, imagine it as a kind of pseudo-Victorian London that is where spectrology as big was in Victorian London, but ghosts are real. There's a lightning barrier that keeps them outside of it. Essentially, a couple hundred years back or so, the gates to the underworld were abolished. And once that happened, ghosts were trapped on Earth, and this was one of the solutions that people came up with. Cultures do things like they hunt the ghosts. Even people within Duskfall do ghosts, but it's not like something that everyone does. If you were to go to an area like Aruvia or Skovlin, they deal with the ghosts differently. And we'll talk about those areas if those are things that you are interested in as we go to and ready. Now, I know you guys have done a little homework on finding out about different crew types and finding out your playbooks and things like that. Let's go and talk about how playbooks interest you and idea maybe of who your character is and you want to talk it through. I know we got some names on the overlay already. You can kind of tell us who you're looking at playing. So first up, we're going to talk to Liz about that.
I'm planning on playing the Leash, which is like a tinker or an alchemist. Planning on going the route of making a lot of things, gadgets and the like. Slim Faraday.
And next, Nelson.
I have to unmute. Yeah, I'm a man of magic, so I'm interested in the Whisper. I like. Yeah.
The Whisper is really interesting. One of the things that's different compared to a lot of other tabletop RPGs is the magic is not a direct system. It's more like you perform rules for everything. Magic is almost like this lost old art. The only game that I've played that has anything quite like it is probably Cthulhu, when you start dabbling in nonsensical, we're going to summon a god of magic. And that's actually fairly close estimation of what magic is inside this game.
Well, I'm also an H.P. Lovecraft fan, so it's...
All right. And Jeff, you want to talk about your...
Yeah, so I am going to be playing a spider. Kind of this almost like social mastermindy kind of thing, the evil mastermind plots and that kind of thing. A little more of a social of a talk. Kind of trying to orchestrate their will from...
Perfect. And it sounds like you, as a crew, are probably going to be a little bit more leaning towards like social aspect of the game. It doesn't sound like we have anybody who really wants to get face to face with anybody in Tossle as much as probably like a Cutter would. There was some talk about different crew types, and you guys were kind of discussing things through. The last time we talked, you guys were kind of in between Hawkers and Shadows. But you had kind of an interesting take on Hawkers being information brokers. Is that still something everybody's interested in?
I think it would be a wonderful way to try to play.
Yeah, it definitely would be, and see how that would end up playing out.
Yeah, it's an interesting way to kind of give the breakdown of anybody's new to Blades. Hawkers is kind of your at first approach, when you look at them, they look like they're the drug dealing game, but what they sell or they hawk is entirely left up to the players. So creative players can go beyond just something as simple as drugs and look into weapons, espionage, different secrets, and things like that. There's a lot of industrial stuff that's in the cities. So if you wanted to, you could even be like corporate spies and have a game about you being just the corporate spies that go from one Sparkrite company to another, stealing secret, things like that. And that's probably what these guys are going to kind of get themselves involved in with that basic idea. My original suggestion to you guys was considering starting as a Shadows gang. Because of the different hunting grounds that are available to you. Shadows do have one that is specifically edge, and that sounds a little bit more like a lot of the missions that you're going to do. However, the Hawkers, if you were to start with them, their digging ground options basically are like socialize and pushing your product and things like that. It's kind of a question of how you want to approach it.
Yeah, I think it could be kind of interesting to, like, if we were to start as Shadows, because I imagine that we're kind of coming into this as like a new group. I don't know if that's the correct assumption to be making, but like, so starting as Shadows, so we can get the information that we will at some point be selling, and as we get the crew kind of transition into some of the Hawker skills to kind of balance it out.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that's really cool about the system is, like, if you see something from another playbook that fits your idea or your character and your crew, you can absolutely do that. So, now that we kind of have an idea, what I want to do is kind of take a stack. We're going to build your characters first, and once you have your characters, it may influence how you're going to choose things for your game. Because when you start stuff, it's basically just you guys, unless you invest in having cohorts. And if you do cohorts, it's maybe one or two extra guys beyond just you guys. So it's going to be a real tight, small operation for a little while. As you guys begin to tier up, you get more muscle, more people on your team, and you become a more viable person in the underground. And as you tier up, of course, you're going to be building enemies, wrapping yourselves up in all sorts of dangerous entanglements, and seeing where things take you. So keep that in mind as you play through your actions, that sometimes it's fun to burn bridges because it will make interesting RP come back when it comes back to you. All right, so let's start with character creation. I'm going to put up the character creation thing on my end here, and we're just going to go through it real quick. So we're going to choose a playbook. We have already picked out your play. The first thing that we're going to look at is our heritage. There are a couple different ones that you could choose from. As far as the heritage goes, think of it as your country of origin. Whenever you pick a heritage, you're going to pick out a detail to it. So kind of the example that I could give you is, let's see, Skovlin, which Skovlin is kind of like this almost Icelandic influenced area, and you're a far before the war. And because of the war, you disposed, and now you're in Duskwall as a refugee. So what you could do is put Skovlander, parentheses, refugee farmer, or something like that, just so that you can remember what your heritage is. Whenever you play the game, the heritage is kind of like your background you'd have in D&D. It guides your RP, really. So the options you have available to you are Akros, which is kind of the Duskwall is itself. It's a diverse conglomerate. It's kind of your somewhat like European influenced area. There's also Isles, which is kind of this exotic land. Corsair and merchants are known to live without lightning barriers down there. Aruvia is kind of this foreign land that is steeped in kind of mysticism. They have a culture that's kind of similar to Persia, Egypt, and India, kind of mixed up. There's Severos, which is considered the wildlands. I like to think of the Severosi kind of like the horse raiders from Game of Thrones, like the Dothraki. They're big, huge, ghost hunting wild men that live on the plains. In fact, they're so scary that they actually teach their horses to eat ghosts. That's how awesome that culture is. um, and their whole land is pretty much wrecked. So it's very hard living out there. If you want to be from like a marginalized people, that's where the Skovlanders come in. Like I said, they're kind of almost like a Viking Norwegian feel to them. And then lastly is Tycheros. Tycheros, the best kind of D&D analogous I can think of, is this is like your tieflings. If tieflings had their own fledged culture, it's this semi-mythical place that's even off the map that you guys can normally see. When you look at the map, it shows Tycheros and an arrow pointing like it's off of that. People say that everyone is part demon there, and as part of being a Tycherosi, you would choose a demonic telltale. So you could have like shark eyes, feathers instead of hair, scales, something like that. So looking down that list, are any of those things something that immediately jumps out at you guys, and you've got a good idea of what you want to do?
For me, it's definitely gross. I definitely kind of see my character being a little more high society, a little more city dweller. So that would be the first thing that immediately jumps out at me.
Yeah,
Okay.
I can't choose between Akros or Tycheros.
Jeff, you said kind of high society. Are you talking about high society by skill, like you've worked in the opera? Or are you like noble or somewhere kind of closer towards high society by birth?
I'd say either like the son of a nobleman, or like the son of a wealthy merchant, or something that would have given him kind of an educated upbringing.
Okay. I like the idea of a merchant son, because you happen to be a spider, so like the tactical mind and the using all of your tools available to you would come very natural, because that's stuff that your parents would teach you, kind of thing. That might be a good way to go.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking too, of just like, learning if the end goal is to be buying and selling things, what better way to have kind of picked up those kinds of skills and have grown up with it.
Lewis, anything jump out at you?
So I'm reading this, and I see that the people of the Dagger Isles are corsairs and like pirates out on the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
And my first thought is, if any of them come here to Duskval, there's got to be one that has like a bastard with a whore on the docks in Duskval.
Oh yeah.
So I like the idea of being like this half-breed, like clearly from Akaros, but with a few telltale signs of dagger blood in her.
Okay. I could dig that. What I would do then is write down the culture that you probably identify as the most, like physically, not necessarily like your personality. Like when people look at you, they're going to assume that you're Akarosi or like which one is the one that people assume?
Akarosi.
Probably Akarosi. If that's the case, you probably look very strongly Akarosi, but maybe you have like a little bit darker, ruddier skin or something like that. Like there's something that gives you away as you're more than what you appear to be, but it's hard to nail down exactly what.
Yeah, I think I just want to be Akaros, like the polar opposite of Jeff. From Akaros in the streets, not necessarily the biggest or the toughest guy, but forced to know where to go, who to talk to, and what to say to survive.
Okay.
Does the who to talk to include demons?
Well,
Sometimes.
you got to do what you got to do.
So, all of you happen to be from Akaros, so my first question to you guys is, what's the connection between all of you? Are you similar in age, or did you kind of grow up on the streets together? Because, I mean, even a merchant's son would have a rebellious streak and go out in the streets at some point. So, to me, it would make sense if that's the case. But if there's something else you guys have in mind about how you're connected, we can totally work that through.
I think it should be like a business connection, because you have the son of a merchant, a half breed who's one of his parents is a traveler, probably brings in wares from places or some exotic crap, like even the little trinkets or whatever they could sell.
She definitely doesn't know them though.
What happened?
She definitely doesn't know the little travels. Like
Right.
a whore, an Akarosi dock whore, and some ship's hand from the Dagger Isles.
So
are her
what
parents.
you say is that you have a lot of fathers.
I was going to say, fun fact, in Akros, the prostitutes are known as minks.
Minks, like plural,
Like the animal mink.
Okay,
They're minks.
that's interesting.
I just think that's the first thing that comes into mind, though. Some, trading in trinkets and marking them.
Mm-hmm.
Or
So-
maybe trading in rumor.
Yeah, I mean, that is a kind of an interesting point. Is that like having so many people from diverse backgrounds? It would be very easy. Like, I'd be able to tell you the rumors about this noblewoman and that nobleman, or that merchant and that and this deal, and then you would have kind of the lowdown secrets, a little bit more of the in the streets gang activity kind of thing. So that we'd have access to a wide network.
Idea is like, Jeff, your father was probably more about actual trading physical goods, but every time that you ran across a book, character probably as like a teenager at least, and was one of the ones that unloaded ships and you kind of passed the time with, and there was always this street kid around, and between the three of you, you kind of got interested, wrapped up in kind of, like, at first it was exciting gossip about the nobles, and then you found out that there's some truth to it, and that some of these secrets have value. And I imagine that, like, the first time you guys really got a score, you had, like, a really juicy piece of information on maybe one of the nobles, and you sold it to the right person. And that's what really got the wheels turning about, hey, we could do this, we can make this our thing. Does that sound kind of fitting for
Yeah, I love that idea.
Okay. Let me just make a note, because I'm going to
Jeff,
generate
how
a
old is
noble.
Kent? How old is Kent? Because Simon's like still a kid, probably like 19 at the oldest.
Kent would be a couple years older than that. Maybe like 25 at the oldest, 24, kind of in that range.
I was thinking 7. Because given the type of setting, that's like a manhood.
Yeah, I would say that, because we're talking like Victoria London, probably 15, 16 is when you'd be expected to pull your weight around the house as a man. You might still be able to get away with a little bit as far as like the law is concerned, but for the most part, yeah, you're pretty much on that cusp of adulthood.
Okay, so ages are younger.
Yeah, late teens, early 20s, kind of, for the most part.
The second thing we do is we pick out a background, which I feel bad that I described heritage as a background because I forgot about the fact that there's also a background. For this, there's a set list of options. You can choose academic, labor, law, trade, military, noble, and underworld. You guys have kind of already started to figure this out, so some of these choices should probably make a lot of sense. Like for Jeff, you're probably trade because of what we've talked about. The only other thing that you could consider is, at least that makes sense so far from what we talked about, is maybe noble, as your father, while he's a trader, he's part of like a merchant house that's got actual position within the city.
I guess the real question as far as the background stuff goes is that more of like hard skills that may have been learned, or is that more of like current interests outside of gang stuff? Because there's a lot of ideas that I would have for at least my character that would be more academic in nature as far as now.
Yeah,
but I guess
the
that what
background describes
necessarily
what you did before you joined the gang. So, I mean, like, even if your father is trade, but your father wanted a better life for you and sent you to the academic world, academic could totally fit for you then.
Yeah, because the kind of the thought, at least that I had, just kind of free-flowing ideas, is like basically he grew up in that kind of world, this merchant world, but he doesn't really want to be that. Like, he kind of wants to be able to do his own thing at some point. Kind of more almost like the stereotypical like starving artist kid of like, I'm helping my dad with his shop, but really I'd rather be like writing this book or like
Right.
something like that.
So, looking at the academic, it's got a couple of examples in here. One of them that kind of stands out to me is a journalist. Does that kind of fit your idea for Ronin, possibly? Like, you went to school and you want to find the truth, not necessarily for profit like you're doing right now, but just to find the truth. And you haven't quite gotten to the point where you really live efficiently off of the truth and be like an ink rake, which is kind of the newspaper people inside the city.
Yeah, but that would get pretty close. It's just like almost like half journalist, half like philosophy wannabe kind of thing.
Okay,
like
yeah, philosophy
trying to
would work
find
too.
the higher order of being that certainly can be achieved in a city like this, but he's not there yet, so he has to do something to make money, and
Right.
selling knowledge is more efficient than writing it.
Has he
on
taken like
stage.
one philosophy class?
Yeah, he took philosophy 1 and just went
Yeah.
overboard.
Yeah, you teach somebody symbolic law. Next thing you know, they think they're the next Nietzsche or something. So that's basically is him at this point. He's got some growing to do in that sense, but
Okay. How about for Slate?
I am so clearly underworld, it's ridiculous.
I figured that's what it was going to be. You mentioned Street Urchin earlier, so that's probably going to be your detail as well. And for Lewis, what were you thinking?
Mixing it up in the underworld.
Okay. So, as an Underworld member, what were you thinking for your character? Like, how are you involved? Like, what's your detail?
Who's the you here?
You, Lewis. Sorry.
Me.
I took a bite as you
Okay.
asked.
I think I feel like I haven't been clear about this. So Simon is an alias. Her name is Pipe. She is female. She poses as a male because being a woman in this world is shitty.
That's a lesson
So,
she got from her mom.
Yeah, it was lesson number 2.
So,
Uh,
when she presents herself as a male, is it convincing? Like, does she
yeah,
look
yeah.
fairly gender neutral, or is she
looks
feminine?
fairly gender neutral, and like she plays up more masculine traits.
Okay.
A bit of grime goes a long way too.
That was lesson number 3.
This is going to become a thing now.
I like it.
lesson
With-
76. The
With us knowing each other, would we know like who Piper really is, or would we only know Simon?
I feel like you guys decide that. If we're like close associates, you probably know if we've been working together for a while. Otherwise, she goes by Simon in every day-to-day situation. There is almost no situation where she is Piper.
Okay.
Oh yeah, background stuff. Yeah, she's a dock rat. She grew up on the docks. She knows the docks. There's a faction, I believe, that rocks the docks.
Yes, the Dockers, surprisingly.
The Dockers. They basically
clever
raised
name.
her,
Okay.
probably. them and the minks.
That's really good to keep in mind when we start building the gang, thinking about how your connections with previous gangs and the other parts of the city, both underworld and like the actual city factions, like how you possibly have interacted with the bluecoats in the past, etc. So now that we've gotten those details out of the way, what we're going to do is assign dots inside those actions. The actions are on the right-hand side of your character sheet. Essentially, whenever you want to do anything, you're going to roll an action that will be created from a dice pool determined by the dots that you have inside there. It's pretty streamlined because you guys have these character sheets built in. Basically, you'll click on the action's name. So if you want to skirmish, you click on skirmish, and then, we'll guide you through the next steps as they come up. It gets a little bit more difficult after that, but it's mostly difficult on my part. You guys just fill in the blanks and see what happens. So you get to put one dot in any action you feel reflects your character's heritage. So keep in mind those heritages that we talked about, the countries that you originate from. You're all from Akaros, and you could all have a different idea of what reflects your heritage. There's nothing that says Akaros, you can only pick from this list. It's more of like, really kind of brings it up. A good example is for Simon. Simon grew up with the Minks and Dockers. So something like Sway or Consort would actually make a lot of sense for his version of Duskwall, or her version of Duskwall, what he grew up with, because that is part of living with Minks. You have to be able to consort. You have to be able to sway. You have to persuade people to do what you want them to do in that kind of world. If there's any skill that you feel like you want a better definition of, the ones that I find to be kind of difficult are consort and sway, because they sound like they kind of cover the same areas, and they do, but it's a different approach. It's like socializing, passing out drinks, and getting your information that way. Sway is pretty much persuade. And then there's also command, which is kind of like intimidate.
Hey, you, tell me this now!
Yeah.
Yeah.
The cool thing about this game is when you want to gather information, if you can explain it to me in a way that makes sense, you can technically use action to do it. So if you wanted to skirmish and gather information, it's going to be harder for you to explain that to me, but you can do it.
It's like, hey!
Yeah.
Yeah, and can you just remind me real quick, is max stats for at this point 2 or 3?
It's 2.
2. That's what I
think.
figured.
We'll have a couple of dots already assigned, and then you guys are going to add some here. Your background is going to give you an extra dot as well. Same heritage, pick one that you think reflects that background. And just as a reminder, I know we've got academic and the 2 underworld as kind of your reference points for that. Academic, kind of the most logical choice would be like something like study.
Yeah, that's what I took.
Yeah, I think mine would be skirmish and prowl.
Okay.
You know, being that you got to weave in, weave in and out trying to gather information.
Yeah.
But getting away from places, and when you can't get away, you got to throw your fists up once in a while.
Yeah, and that's part of just being in Duskwall is that just everyday street survival is necessary.
I took sway and finesse because lesson number 6 was to lie. Lesson number 7 was to steal.
Okay.
I like it. Yeah,
like
the other
something that Simon comes up with like in game. He goes lesson number 12, and then just bounce off some information.
Yeah. Yeah, and sway was the other point I put in. So study from the background and sway from the heritage.
Okay. You also get 2 dots that you can put anywhere that you want. So your book came with 3 already assigned, and you're basically assigning 4 in total. So by the time you can double check yourself by counting to make sure it adds up to 7.
Study is used specifically for tinkering stuff, right? To figure out how to make something.
You just double check. Let's see here.
I feel like I need.
Well, I can tell you right now that study will do things like let you gather information. So if you're looking at like the Sparkrite's hulls and you wanted to see how they were designed, I would call for a study from that. Unless you put your hands on it, we're actually manipulating it, then we could possibly do like a tinker. It kind of depends on what the fiction is on how we do it. But looking at crafting here, or inventing things, you want to have study. For crafting the actual item, you're going to want to have tinker.
I'm playing an inventor. I'll put a point in study.
Yeah, that looks like the most part of what you do is tinker and study.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to play that ritualist.
Okay.
Which is basically like the magic version of your inventor.
Yeah,
we are
absolutely.
The time crew.
But
so,
I didn't understand it. Like I couldn't grasp my head around the way it was presented.
It's
too
kind of
well.
confusing, to be honest. Essentially, the way that any sort of ritual or animation works is there's a conversation that happens between the GM and the player, where we ask a couple questions and establish fictionally what the thing you're creating is. And then I use some charts that I have available to me to determine how hard or what the cost is going to be to you. And then it's up to you to ultimately say, yes, I want to do it, or, oh, hell no, I'm not paying 3 trauma for that nonsense. I'll do something else.
3 trauma?
It would be astronomical what you'd be asking for 3 trauma.
Yeah.
It's like, that's not even stress. That's just, you're fucked up now.
The idea of throwing around lightning, though, is always appealing.
You can absolutely, in fact, that's actually built into your playbook.
I
If
can
you
build
wanted to
machines.
have like a lesser version of throwing around lightning, because when you throw lightning, it's very cost inducive on your stress.
Yeah.
You could actually create like a ritual to do like attune damage, like you would with a skirmish or with a hull. But now you get to use attune, and maybe it's not throwing lightning, but it's like turning your hand into like an ethereal ghost hand and touching people with it, or whatever we decide to do.
Okay, Chris, question.
Mm-hmm.
What do I use a tune for if I'm not a whisperer?
So if you're not a whisperer, attune, you can use it for a couple different things. Let me pull it real quick here. It is made for developing the ghost field. However, you can also use it to a lesser extent for kind of your survival instincts that are built into your person. Like, if you walk into a room and you know something's up, we could put that underneath. Let's see here.
Kind of like Spidey senses?
We could put that under survey, or if I think it's more of like a ghostly related thing, I may ask you to attune, and it's kind of like a Spidey sense type deal, exactly.
Because I'm looking at a tune because I am planning on taking the whisper move. What's it called? Strange methods, I think it is.
Right.
The one that lets me tinker with arcane stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Because Piper is very interested. Basically, she's a leech that wishes she was a whisper, and is going to take that approach to magic, the making and manipulating of things with by making stuff, like becoming the talismonger in the future.
Right. So.
And I'm looking at a tune.
So at the very beginning, or the very bottom of the attune in the GM's question area, it says any PC can attune. It's not a supernatural gift. The ghost field is always there. It's just at the edge of the mind, ready for connection. Whisper and other occultists can attune as the basis for supernatural powers, such as Tempest or Possess. Without the ghost field and ectoplasmic energies, these powers can't manifest. So basically, you could use it in the same way that a Whisper could, but because of the Whisper's training, the Whisper is going to be able to do stuff like throw lightning. You could use it to reach out and connect with ghosts. Just anybody could do that, but the chances of getting messed up from doing that are much greater than your Whisper from doing that. Another thing that I would consider doing is allowing you to basically survey a location at distance, like a scry type of situation. Which would be useful for your gang's interests of being able to collect information, things like that. if you wanted to play it as a character who isn't very good at attuning personally, what I would recommend is investing into the tune skill as if it's something you've studied and you understand. But when you RP, just choose not to do attuney things. Like don't try to contact the ghost field or describe yourself as contacting it but not really getting anywhere. So instead, you're going to survey, that sort of thing.
I think I'll leave attune to Slate for now.
Okay.
Then. Thank you for the explanation.
Yeah. Was there anything else that stood out for anybody as kind of a questionable item or anything?
So I guess just like, can you just go a little bit more into finesse? I know it has like a little bit to do with like pickpocketing and thievery, but is that like all it encompasses, or is there kind of more to it than that?
I know it involves driving.
Yes. You can basically, finesse is kind of a dexterous catch-all, if you would. It might include like picking someone's pockets or handling controls of a vehicle or directing a mount. And you might use it when you are formally dueling. Like if you were to use a spear and it was official duel, it might call for a finesse instead of a skirmish because it makes more sense in that situation. A lot of these skills, it's how you position yourself narratively. So if you tell me, this lock that's in our way, I'd like to try and slip in there and pick the lock from behind since there's some bars in the door. And I'd be like, okay, that sounds like you're doing a finesse roll, even though normally I might ask for a skirmish or tinker to undo a lock. Because you're doing it in kind of an unorthodox way and you described it the way you did, it makes sense to use maybe a different skill.
I see.
Rec is for general chaos and destruction.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. It's physical, though. So there is actually an ability that allows you to wreck things magically as well. But typically when you use the wreck skill, it is physically wrecking things.
Magical wreck. I want it.
If I remember right, that comes off the Leech playbook.
It's called Ghost Ward.
Yeah.
I believe Marquis struck it first one shot.
Regardless of anything, if you throw lightning at it, you will achieve the effects of wrecking it, but it will count as an attune roll.
If you throw lightning at it, it's not going to enjoy it. Yeah, I get 2 in Tinker and 1 in Wreck for free from being a leech.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's take a quick moment. What were the 2 free ones that Slate got?
Slate, he got for Whisper, it was 2 in Tune and 1 in Study.
Okay. And then
for his
the Spider? Or actually, yeah, go ahead and go down the list, because we kind of already talked about what Lewis has, so we might as well go through the whole list.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I have Prowl and Skirmish for my heritage and background.
Mm-hmm.
And for the 2 free ones, I took Hunt and Finesse.
Okay, perfect. Hunt is interesting because it not only is like your survival capability, it is also how you shoot ranged weapons. Okay, and for Ronan?
Yeah, so as a spider, I started out with 2 in Consort and 1 in Study. With my background, I put up another 1 into Study, and Heritage, I put 1 into Sway. And for my 2 other points, I put 1 into each of Finesse and Prowl.
Okay, perfect. The next step to creating a character is we're going to look at some of those special abilities. In the time that we've been talking, I'm sure you guys have looked at it or looked ahead and kind of have an idea of exactly what you're shooting for. So I'm going to go quickly through here, starting with Jeff. Is there one that specifically stands out for you as a spider, as that's the special ability I really want to start with?
There's 2 I'm going back and forth between, and that's Foresight and Mastermind.
Okay. Why don't you explain that to the group? That way maybe we can decide as a group what sounds like it'd be really helpful. I have my personal opinions, and I'll keep them to myself on this one.
Yeah, so Foresight lets me twice per score. I can assist a teammate without without paying stress, and I could describe basically how I prepared for that in advance, kind of like a flashback kind of thing. So it's kind of just like that kind of planning part of it. And Mastermind lets me use a special armor to either protect a teammate or to push myself when I gather information or work on a long-term project. So basically what would give me advantages kind of as we plan longer and longer term things that we're trying to accomplish, I would get bonuses to do that if I were to take that one.
I see your problem here.
Yes.
One of them
The
is
one
like
that I do want to point out as just a reminder to you guys, the foresight not paying stress to assist a teammate twice. Stress is one of your basically your hit point tracks. And so being able to do that for free could come in handy, especially since it's two free times of using it.
So that's 2 stress that he just doesn't have to spend.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I think foresight is the forerunner right now. Since if we're focused on gathering information, we probably shouldn't be fighting. So the ability to spend your special armor might go unused.
Well, protect us.
Yeah, well, the special armor also can be used to further advance on a long-term project, so it doesn't have to be combat.
And protect is broader than just combat, right? Like, so protect us from pretty much anything. If I'm
Absolutely.
reading it right.
So
Yeah,
like,
so it could be
if you were in a
protecting,
social
like-
situation. And
Yeah, protecting him from a bad run-in with a noble or something like that, where I think he's going to say something stupid that gives us a bad rep, and I can be like, oh, no, he doesn't know what he's talking about. He doesn't know the conventions, like that kind of nonsense.
kind of like Fate, I can deal you guys mental damage as well as physical damage and magical damage even. And it kind of depends on the narrative of the scene. So like if you're dealing with a noble and the noble basically talks you out of the circle that you're currently in, maybe part of what he does is he gives you level 1 harm of shamed or something like that.
Yeah, I'm kind of leaning towards foresight, just because, like, I think, like, just the idea of being able to help. So, I mean, obviously, like, role-playing wise, help is obvious and very broad, but is there, like, a specific mechanical purpose that helping somebody means?
Yeah, there absolutely is. So teamwork is one of the big things that makes Blades in the Dark what it is. Essentially, when you use the assist feature, you can let them either gain an additional die to their pool, which means more chances at success, or instead you can improve their result. So instead of having a standard result, they have a great result, or instead of a great, they have an extreme result. Basically meaning that because of your help, the quality of the work is going to come out better. That's the way I typically like to use assists when I use them, just because in my brain, that's kind of how teamwork works, is we're working together to create a better product.
Yeah, I think I like foresight. If anybody else has some points to raise, I think that's the one I'm leaning towards.
I think it's awesome.
Sweet.
And narratively, it basically means you can help us from any distance too, because it happened in the past.
That's kind of the best part about it. Like, anytime you guys want, you can produce your own flashbacks inside this game.
But it hurts.
But when you do so, it may cost you stress depending on how in-depth I think that flashback is. So I do encourage you guys to use that mechanic. Don't feel like I'm going to kill you over it. But like, if you say, oh, we conveniently had a stagecoach fully armed with a bunch of machetes, I think that's a little bit extra extreme. Like,
Why
if
are
you
we carrying
want to say like a
machetes?
stagecoach with like 3 machetes in there, I could buy on that. But like 12,
Why
Yeah,
we-
but
why
that's
we bring
what's-
machetes?
yeah.
I don't know. Machetes came to mind.
If we bring machetes, things have gone much worse than machetes can solve.
I just like the idea of us somehow, for some reason, needing a stagecoach with like 50 machetes in it.
like it's so
You're
many machetes.
standing
you
on
can't
there
even-
throwing them.
Like, as if just the 3 isn't enough.
Ronan, you're sure 3 wasn't sufficient? Needed 50.
Yeah,
It's
that's one
because-
of the things that appeals to me about Foresight, though, is that ability to basically dip into that flashback thing
Yeah.
without having to beat myself up about it.
Okay.
All right.
It's a lot of fun.
For Simon Faraday, is there anything that stands out for you as far as leech abilities that really seems like it? I know we talked about Tinker, so I'm assuming it's probably one of those options on there that involves
Probably Artificer.
Artificer.
Oh, the only issue with Artificer that I see is I can't think off the top of my head of a great Sparkcraft. So Sparkcraft is just anything that is mechanical or runs on electroplasm, right?
Correct.
Because one of the examples in the book was like a line caster or something, which is basically just a grapple gun.
Yes.
Could I make a compact recording device, like a rudimentary tape recorder?
I would say that that's within the realm. Like the way I would think about it is, you've seen those old sound cylinders, right, where they have the bumps on them. Essentially, It's a machine that carves a cylinder as it goes, and then to play it back, you have to have another machine that can read the cylinders.
Do the machines that read the cylinders exist? Because I only start with one.
I'm going to say if you make a recorder, you have the ability to play it back. But
Okay.
like one machine engraves and one machine plays. Like it's all
Got it.
part of a set.
I like it.
All right, I'm going to take Artificer, and that means I start with a design already known. Does that mean I have to build it later, or am I going to start with the thing built?
You know what? I like the idea of the recorder, so I'm going to say that you probably have one built. So we're going to go through the procedure to create one real quick, and then we'll figure out what its limitations and stuff like that is. So
And I plan to eventually pick up all the things that have the word Tinker in them.
right.
I'm going to get Physiker and Stranger Methods so that I can combine like Arcane, Bone and Blood, and Sparkcraft. Who knows?
Yeah, that's awesome.
You know what? Actually, you'll have the idea for the design. You can spend coin and crew upgrades to basically make it better, and I don't want to cheat you by not giving you the opportunity to do so right now. So once the game starts and you guys know what your coin is and what your crew upgrades are, you can then decide if you want to go ahead and make it.
Got it.
But it'll be something that we make once we've established everything else.
All right.
Okay. So, back over to the Whisper. What are you looking at, Nelson?
I was looking at. It's odd. It's ritual because I like the idea of making magical rituals to perform different effects and whatnot. Lewis wants to be the inventor, so I'm not too sure if I should tread on that territory, and maybe go Tempest, just in case we need a big bang somewhere. Or even, I remember there was, I forget the playbook, but there is an ability that has to deal with fighting.
There is ghost fighting from the cutter.
From the... Because the PDF I have doesn't have any bookmarks in it. I don't know if they have a version with bookmarks, but...
There should be.
Ghost Fighter?
I was gonna say there's Ghost Fighter from the cutter, which allows you to basically any weapons that you wield, you fight ghosts on even footing essentially, instead of being at a disadvantage with them. Here we go. Ghost Fighter. You can imbue your hands, melee weapons, or tools with spirit energy. You gain potency in combat versus supernatural and may grapple spirits to restrain and capture them.
Alright. There was another one where it had to do with beating up a lot of people. Anyway,
That's another cutter type ability. That one is not to be trifled with, which allows you to push yourself to perform a feat of physical force. A trick you can do is when you're on your character sheet, there's a little cog in the upper right hand corner, and if you click on that, it'll open up this like drop down menu, and you can select cutter off that list and then click on add abilities, and you'll be able to list all of the cutter abilities
Oh, all right.
What I would do first is add all the whisper abilities, and then also add friends contacts for whispers, and then go to cutter and just add cutter abilities, since you're kind of looking at being possibly a mix between a whisper and a cutter.
Oops.
Wait, hold on. Wait, you said there was a gear?
Yeah, if you are in your character sheet, I'll actually populate it for you right now.
Oh, you already clicked it. Okay.
I have not. I've got it open right now. So if you're in your,
It's
character
directly
sheet,
to the right where it says character mode.
Yeah, you're gonna see me start
version.
to add stuff to your sheet because I'm doing it right now for you.
All right, I won't touch anything.
Add abilities. All right, so looking at your special abilities now, there's a first set that pretty much goes down to warded, and that is your whisper abilities. Thing after that is cutter abilities. If you want to see those, and not to be trifled with, is the one that allows you to engage a small gang on equal footing.
All right. I think for simplicity for now, I'll just grab Tempest.
Okay. The one thing that I do want to address to you guys is keep in mind how your playbook is, because you want, of course, play to your strong suit to gain experience. For the Whisper, it's face a challenge with knowledge or arcane power. For the slide, trying to remember.
We don't have a slide.
Not slide. I'm trying to remember what it is, but I can't remember.
Address a challenge with calculation or conspiracy.
Perfect.
And mine is address a challenge with technical skill or mayhem.
Perfect.
I feel like this is a guide in leeches.
Yes. So we are at our first hour. I'm going to go ahead and put us on a break for about 5 minutes, and then we'll come back and make sure everybody is all set where they are right now. We'll pick out your friends and rivals next, and then we'll go into crew creation. So for everybody who's tuning in and watching this later on, since the stream has had issues, you guys won't see really any break. You'll be able to catch part 2. It'll say episode 1.1, and then, or this will be episode 1.1, then there will also be a 1.2, and then 1.3, 1.4 as well. So just make sure you follow us on the next link for the next video so that you can find out what happens with this kind of strange gathering of fellows. All right.